Now, what do you know about, was Flint's operation and these fellows around him involved in any kind of smuggling or drug dealing?
I ran Larry Flint's espionage agency. I had a single line dedicated to me that anyone who picked up and called the 800 number for the reward of $1 million came across my desk.
Gotcha.
I investigated every one of them. I brought 2 or 3 into the mansion, maybe 6 or 7. I interviewed all of them. None of them had any information. My own research tells me that it was a guy called James Franklin, a right-wing activist who blew Larry Flint's stomach out with 2 high-powered rifle bullets, which meant that they missed his vital organs. They nicked his spleen, they nicked his spinal cord, but they went right through him. And he survived only by the grace of God, because 3 days before, he'd gone on an all-liquid diet and water only. So he had no bad food in his stomach that could give him infection. But 6 weeks in a coma, he woke in his bedroom to all of his redneck family sitting around arguing. His mama was saying, well, Jimmy is going to get $1.5 million, and Larry too, doling it out. And Larry woke up and heard it. He pretended not to hear it, but when he's kind of grunted on the old man, he's waking up. They did not know that he heard every word. As a consequence, every single one of them was written out of the will. That's how swift his justice was. His own mother.
Okay. Oh, by the way, since you were the guy answering the phone when these tips are coming in, did you ever receive any information that you're holding back in your pocket right now, hoping to benefit from?
Well, when you make those calls, the FBI mostly say, oh, that's the last guy. You know what I mean? We keep him on the last guy because it could be, it couldn't be. So it's a joke. We call him the very last guy to call. But somehow, if you're mentioning some little jewel that they're looking at, bada bing.
Yeah.
So it's like people say, there's going to be a bunch of communists meeting in Hollywood at this theater, 200 of them. No one would go to that. It would just be, communists were getting equal now.
I know, but Alan Graham, what I'm talking about is when people are calling in with tips, they want to sell information to Flint, and Alan Graham is answering the phones. I heard these stories about Larry Flint had porn videos of Ronald Reagan. Do you know anything about that?
You're talking about my hotline.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I qualified them mostly over the phone, but I couldn't qualify about a dozen. I had half a dozen in, and a couple of them were believable, but they had no empirical data. They just said, well, I think it was that guy. He's made these statements to me and to my cousin, and on and on and on. No one had any direct information.
But what about, there's a story out there that Larry Flint had porno videos of Ronald Reagan, the president. Do you know anything about that?
We had a mock photograph of Ronald Reagan in a hat and cowboy boots with a hooker with a dildo. They were fornicating.
Right.
And then we had another one of the Vicky Morgan. If you look into the research about me in Springfield, you'll find out the Vicky Morgan sex tapes were the most prominent because I announced, I made a T-shirt, Alan Graham's. No, I have the Vicky Morgan sex tapes, call me. That's how ballsy they were. FBI called me, came to my motel room. I showed them the fake photographs, which is what they were. They all laughed and said, that's the end of that. But sometimes the same guy who can put out the fake video can also put out the real goods. So I was never, because of my background, I was never written off as somebody who's a liar.
Right.
I was actually bringing them in to show them that it was fake.
Now, there's only one book out there about the Vicky Morgan sex tapes, the Vicky Morgan scandal, the death. And when I had the author of that book on this show, he was very hesitant to talk about the Vicky Morgan story. And it seems to me that there's still forces out there that want to keep this quiet. Can you tell the audience the entire Vicky Morgan, what is the Vicky Morgan story?
behind it was Alfred Bloomingdale.
Right.
Of Bloomingdale's. All the wealthy people in the East Coast would come to Vicky Morgan's house or whatever other hooker things that she had set up for them to come and have kinky and do whatever they wanted to do, and it would all be very quiet and private. On the other hand, some people were making tapes of Alfred Bloomingdale and a bunch of other famous people. However, they're going to be kept secret forever because the wealth behind Bloomingdale is so spread out to a lot of people with interests, shareholders. Even though he was a wholly owned corporation, all of his interest in, they're still good shares, and we will not damage that. So the truth about, he's one of those wealthy people because he has so many wealthy connections, will never be exposed.
And how did Vicky Morgan die?
Marvin Pankos beat her to death 18 times with a baseball bat.
And the Vicky Morgan tapes?
Well, those were another bunch of fake tapes. That was the Reagan tape.
Okay.
She was supposed to be doing Reagan. There were bunches of other tapes that never saw the light of day because they were so obviously pathetic.
Okay, well, let me ask a question. Then after Flint dies, where do all these tapes go?
Well, I have them.
Okay, well, you're my new best friend. I'm going to come see you. Where are you located? You're in California right now?
No, I'm not. I'm in Tanganyika.
Where's Tanganyika? That's a country.
Africa.
Africa. Oh, my goodness. Okay. All right. So you have a bunch of this material yourself. You walked away with it.
So tell me this.
Yes.
If you had data like that and you viewed it, what do you think you could do with it?
I think we should talk off the air. Okay, I think we should talk. I get involved in a lot of stuff. I think we should talk. Let me ask you a question that I've always wondered about, okay? It's driven me crazy. Alex Marti, how close of a friendship, a relationship did you have with Alex Marti, the convicted hitman?
Alex Marti was a 22-year-old ex-Air Force. He says he was a helicopter pilot from Argentina. And he told me this story one night. You know, I went on a lot of missions down there. One night, I fired an RPG into this house with all these, and it took out 18 bodies, count them. I said, that's a lot of money, like $12 each. But no, 25. Well, in Argentina, $25 is a lot of money back then. So that's how low level he was. Wow. Now, he claimed he was a helicopter pilot, and Flint hired him right after they got rid of Ryder, but he never, ever, ever could show me any credentials that he could fly a helicopter. So that was just a bullshit way of getting him. And Flint said, yeah, I can fly you to a foreign country, Larry, if things get tough. I got a stealth helicopter. Yeah, nothing.
And Larry was worried about having to flee the country, not because of illegal activity, but because of his blackmail material.
I had an Irish, German, French, and Danish passport always ready for him.
Yeah, that's another thing. Back in the old days, you could have a lot of passports back in the old days, too. It's not as easy as it once was.
I also had a Learjet on the pad, fueled for Europe, Alaska, or wherever I want within an hour from calling.
Gotcha. Now, Alex Marti, he's convicted of this murder, this insane case with this madam, this transvestite madam. She's 300 pounds, 400 pounds. No one's quite sure. Okay. Now, but that appears to me to be a blackmail situation where he was hired to murder a blackmailer. Am I correct?
Mensa sits forever in prison as a fat Jedi. Oh, I don't know how he got overfed in the prison system.
Oh, really?
Must have been carbohydrate. He sits there. Nobody has anything nice to say about him. The only one with any dignity is Mensa. But Marty is a 300-pound pig, and I don't know the story of him being hired to kill a 300-pound transvestite.
Well, isn't that what he's in charge? That blackmail case with the guy, they were making phone calls back and forth, harassing each other.
Where's the court case? Where's the sentence?
There was a court case. I've seen the videos of it. I'll have to I'll have to research that up, make some notes, and get back to you. But Mike,
are you sure it wasn't a Fugazi?
Fugazi?
You sure it wasn't a fraud?
No. I'll dig up that information. I'll get back to you. It's a very fascinating story. And one of the things about that story that fascinates me the most is that when this madam was using these harassing phone calls back and forth with this guy who was a John, and I believe it was over a blackmail situation, they would be calling back and forth, threatening each other, and then this madam would call the Vatican in Italy. She would get on the phone with the Vatican, hang up with them, and then go back to calling this guy back and forth. Do you have any information about that?
I think that was... I never heard of the case.
Okay.
And I was all over every bit of it, but there's so many tangling, loose strings to many people that connect on one level, but not on another.
Right.
And it's like a spider's web. So you unravel one, and you might find some info, but you won't end up with the story. So it's a wonderful way of leaving breadcrumbs that go the wrong way and people following them until they get lost.
Oh, very interesting. That's an interesting theory. But I'm going to dig up some links on that. I'll email it to you. Now, what is your connection?
You know what?
Yeah.
The truth is, I'm not interested in that. No offense.
Okay.
But I'm sure if that was the case, first of all, I can tell you this. No one in the right mind would be on the phone threatening and back and forth. It would happen one single time, and that would be the end of it. What would be known next was go close, have an interview, see if it's real, and then decide this. I want you to remember this intelligence operation name, OODA. It says on the internet, OODA loops, OODA loops. You got to read up on it to understand, but basically I'm going to tell you this. When you employ OODA loops, it's the essence of the art of war on steroids. It goes like this. I, as an operative, observe my quarry. Next, I get close and I orient what's going on, to whom, how many times. Then immediately after, I decide, OODA, I decide which course of action are you going to take. And immediately after that, in rapid succession, I act. Because the delay in that process is sheer like the billions and billions of nanoseconds that can change a project. Like, I'll wait till tomorrow. Oh, no. If you engage in OODA loops, you must do it when you observe, when you orient, when you decide, and you must act right now.
Yeah, I got to tell you something, man. That's really good advice for me right now because I'm having a huge problem with procrastination. And so I really appreciate that. We're talking to Alan Graham. You can find his website at coronado-clarion.com. /silo. That's where you can find all of his books. I remember Jim Morrison. He's Jim Morrison's brother-in-law. Before the Beatles were famous, he grew up right around the Cavern concert hall there. And then Poet Rain by Alan Graham. Fascinating life of working with the Larry Flint publication. Mr. Alan Graham, what is the story of Tim Leary and who was that guy with him, G. Gordon Liddy?
Well, first of all, I can help you in days with that procrastination. Just call me.
I will. I really need help with that. I got a big problem with that.
I've been a psychotherapist for 47 years, dealing with hardcore cons, little weak boys who crank it off their mommy's couch, all kinds of broken down PTSD military veterans.
Gotcha.
And I'm very effective in my job.
No, I'll definitely call you. I'll call you in a couple of weeks. Just kidding.
Yeah. You've got no problem.
Yeah. But we only got about 10 minutes left. We got less than 10 minutes. So I want to hear about Tim Leary and G. Gordon Liddy, and then